To solve this inequality, we are going to solve two different equations to figure out our intervals and gain our test values and so forth. We'll solve this equation where we set the left-hand side equal to -1, and then we'll also solve the equation where the denominator is equal to 0. We want to determine where the function is undefined. We solve this first equation by taking x plus 2 times the right-hand side, in other words, cross-multiplying. If we simplify, we'll have -1 times x, which is negative x, plus -2. I can add an x to both sides, and I can also subtract a 3 from both sides. So we should end up with 2x equals -5. Dividing both sides by 2 gives us x equal to -5 halves. Now, -5 halves is the same as -2.5, which might help us define our intervals a little easier. The other equation, x plus 2 equals 0, well, just subtracting 2 from both sides of the equation gives us x equals -2. These are the values I will use to define my test intervals. So I will have 3 test intervals. We have our test intervals A, B, and C and the test values within each of those intervals. We will determine if x plus 3 over x plus 2 is indeed less than or equal to -1 at each of those test values. When x is -3, we end up with 0 less than or equal to -1. That's a false statement. So the answer is no. The left-hand side is not less than or equal to the right-hand side. When x is -2.25, we end up with -3 less than or equal to -1. That is true, and so yes, the left-hand side is less than or equal to the right-hand side. And finally, when x is 0, we end up with 3 halves less than or equal to -1. That is false. So the answer to the question is no. So the interval in which our solution lies is interval B. If you remember, interval B included -2.5 up through -2, not including 2. So part A of this question asks us to give the solution an interval notation. That notation would look like -2.5, comma, -2, with a parenthesis on the right to indicate that -2 is not part of the solution. For set builder notation, the solution would look like the set x such that -2.5 is less than or equal to x is less than -2. Remember, less than or equal to is equivalent to a bracket. Less than is equivalent to just a parenthesis.